Al's available. Avery is progressing. He shot yesterday, worked out some today. We'll try to go through some of practice tomorrow, and we'll see from there.
What does that mean for the starting lineup?
We'll start. We'll have the same starting lineup in Milwaukee, except we'll replace Amir with Al.
The last couple of years, Jonas has kind of grown from coming off the bench to then starting the playoffs. Now he's entered the starting lineup. What does he do with that first unit?
Well, I think and I said this a little bit, a couple weeks ago. I think that we are going to be best if we start really focusing on how we best can play night in, night out. And so there will be some times where he does start and sometimes where he doesn't. I think that he plays obviously really well with Isaiah because he's a guy that can space the floor. He's a guy that when you have paint attacks, when you have more threats, obviously, he's going to be at his best, whether it's shooting or driving against a closeout. So, and then, the other thing right now with Avery being out, we're starting Jaylen, and starting Jonas with Jaylen and Jay allows us to switch a little bit more. And so that's been something that, with Avery out, I think helps our defense. Now, when Avery comes back, you'd still do it some, but you can do other things a little bit better with Avery back.
What has Jaylen shown you with that starting group? Because earlier this year, he was playing a little bit at the 4, and now not so much there. What's he showing you from a defensive standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, he's only played a handful of minutes at the 4 in the regular season. He obviously did in the preseason some, but we kind of determined, especially early on in the regular season, it's hard to do both well. And so focused a lot of his attention on the 3. We're going to need him to continue to guard guys 2 through 4 all year. But certainly a guy with his body and his physicality, we need to be able to guard some of those better 3s around. And so, that's one of the things that we've been focused on with him, and he's done a pretty good job. The good news about Jaylen is whether he plays a lot and starts or doesn't play a lot coming off the bench, he's still working, and you feel good about his progress, and I think you can see that in the last couple of games.
How would you compare his situation where he's not playing as much as some of the other rookies, but he's on a winning team, a contending team? Some of these other rookies are playing more, but they're not in a winning situation.
I mean, everybody always thinks development is directly tied to minutes, and because that's what you can see. And I just don't think that way. I think that you can develop yourself in a ton of ways, and if you're just playing minutes but not putting in the work on the off days and not doing all the little things that help make yourself better, then ultimately you're not progressing at the right rate. It all works out and works itself together. But you know what? We're in a unique situation because we had a high draft pick and we've got a good team. And as I said before, he's done a really good job because he's proven that he can add value to winning, and that's how you get on the court.
Do young players generally have to be taught that as much as minutes observed?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it goes back to I used to say in college, freshmen want to play and sophomores want to start. Ultimately, by the time you get up to be an upperclassman, you realize that stuff really isn't near as important. You always want to win. Everybody wants to win. But by the time you get to be an upperclassman, there's a different need to. And so I think that's just part of being young. But I've seen in our guys, like that's one of the things I really like about our young guys is that's been the priority, is how we can help add value to our team to help the team win. And ultimately, if everybody wins, everybody benefits from that.
Coach, can you talk about Amir and what he brings to that same conversation? I mean, obviously.
Yeah, Amir, one of the things that's great about Amir, other than what you see on the court with his ability defensively and then some of the things he can do at the rim, his touch around the rim and those type of things, is he's just a really reliable, positive energy guy. Like he's in the locker room, he's always laughing, he's always joking. He's not a guy that takes himself too seriously. In a good way. He can laugh at himself, and he's just a fun person to be around. Like, when I tell Amir tonight that, I'm going to start Jonas and Al, I don't worry for 1 second that Amir's not all about the team and all about winning. That's all that guy cares about. So he's good to have around. Sets a good example.
With Al,
Is there a difference when he's playing more of a power forward or a center, or is it pretty much the same to you?
We play the same way, regardless. Obviously, you know, if a power forward's guarding him, sometimes we post him a little bit more than a guy maybe like Drummond. Although, you know, we'll still throw the ball in the post and play through Al as a playmaker for us, regardless. So, you know, regardless, he's got strengths that he can play against 4s or 5s.
Fred, this Pistons starting lineup gave you guys a lot of trouble the last time we saw them. Does your new lineup kind of help combat that a little bit?
They added Jackson.
Right.
So Ish Smith had 2 tremendous games against us and has really had a great year. You know, we've talked all year about this. This team that we're playing against was a really good team last year, has had really good moments this year, and maybe played as well as anybody's played against us here in that game. I went back and watched the game again, and you know, sometimes you just have to tip your hat to the other team, and they played outstanding. So, you know, we're going to do our best to try to make that difficult. But they've got good players, and they've got a lot of length and a lot of strength, and they're a hard team for us to match up with.
Brad, reports out that Carmelo Anthony would put the Celtics on his short list of teams that he'd be willing to go to. Not speaking to that situation, can you just talk about, does it make you proud, the standing that the Celtics have in the league right now? I mean, with Al coming and number 2 in the East, and just kind of the reputation that you guys have built.
I don't even think about anything. Obviously, I can't speak to any specifics like that, and I don't really even think about that stuff. We're just trying to do our jobs well, and you know, whatever happens with regard to how people view us.